Hey, Anthony,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on the Antifa roundtable that Trump just held?
that was pretty bad. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that it was some propaganda piece coming out of a authoritarian dictatorship like North Korea, and not an official broadcast coming from the person that's supposed to be the leader of the free world.
How so?
Well, the whole thing was basically a circus show of political theater. First, you have the attendees, right? You have Trump, who could barely stay awake for the whole presentation, and whose participation mainly involved reading lines off a piece of paper and calling on the other participants like some type of king. Then you have the people surrounding him, some of the worst people in the United States right now: Kash Patel, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi. And finally, you have a bunch of supposed independent journalists, but of course, it's actually just a collection of right wing conservative influencers who have no connection to actual journalism whatsoever. And all these people spend the entire meeting taking turns reading what are clearly scripted lines and made up anecdotes about how Antifa is this huge threat to the United States and how the Trump administration is going to deal with Antifa. Lines which, of course, are filled with all kinds of hateful fascist rhetoric, and which are clearly propaganda designed to justify and stoke right-wing violence in the United States, both the state-sponsored and independent varieties, right? And, there was basically just no semblance of truth for the entire meeting. The whole thing was about building this narrative of existential threat to the United States from Antifa in order to justify the Trump administration's suppression of free speech and increasingly illegal use of the military to act against the American people.
So, what was said at the meeting?
It was mostly really vile rhetoric and outright lies that don't bear repeating, but there was a couple notable things that I think everybody should pay attention to. The first was that Noam compared Antifa to terrorist organizations like MS-13, Hezbollah, and ISIS. Noam said that they would be taking apart Antifa brick by brick from the top of the organization. And Trump said that we will be very threatening to them, far more threatening than they were to us, as well as saying that the Trump administration, has taken freedom of speech away. So these are very inflammatory, fascist statements designed to instoke fear and violence in the U.S. population. And mind you, this is all for an organization that doesn't actually exist. Antifa is not some structured organization. It doesn't have leadership. It doesn't have financing. It doesn't have any type of power structure. It's an idea or an ideology, right? It's the idea of anti-fascism, and at worst, it's a name that is used by a very, very loose collection of individuals who like to protest under it and protest the very types of things that the Trump administration is doing in the U.S. to overthrow democracy. This whole meeting wasn't about dealing with some actual threat. It was just about creating this rhetoric for the Trump administration to label any opposition to the Trump administration as Antifa, as domestic terrorists, and to justify violence and removal of rights against those people. It's about creating a one-party state.